Scott, I got a question for you.
I have an answer. Des Moines.
What?
Okay.
Close.
Really?
What do YouTubers use to edit videos? Like what software?
I have a couple of ideas because I've used them myself. Do you want me to answer now or wait for this cool opening musical treatment?
Yeah, just wait a few seconds and then we'll tell you. Okay, so I'm a YouTuber. You're a YouTuber.
Yes.
And we know a whole lot of YouTubers, and so we know what they use to edit their videos. So there are three main answers. First one,
Filipinos.
That's not the main answer. That's my answer.
Right. Because that is the exact answer. What do you use to edit your videos? Filipinos.
But we're talking software.
Right. Oh, okay.
So software, there's iMovie and Final Cut Pro. Both Apple.
That's true.
Both Apple versions.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
iMovie is the free one that comes on the phone or the Mac, and then Final Cut Pro costs a $300 one-time upgrade, which is pretty cool. And then there's Adobe Premiere. Mm-hmm. I know people that use all of them. Like there's some that, because iMovie is just so simple, and they think that Final Cut Pro is more complicated because it has a few more. It basically takes the throttle off.
It has less automation. Final Cut Pro. You know what I mean? Like, if iMovie takes some steps and just gives them names, you know.
Yeah.
Final Cut Pro kind of gives you more the ability to tweak and do things yourself.
Well, and that would definitely be the difference between Final Cut Pro and Premiere. I'll just give you a specific example. So if I'm filming on green screen and I want to, then key out that green background and replace it with something else, in Final Cut Pro, it's like a couple clicks. It just does it for me. I don't have to go in and fine-tune all these things because it does a really good job. But if I try and do the same thing in Premiere, I've really got to take a lot of time to fine-tune and tweak. And I do have a lot more control, but I can't get it as good. Now, I've had my team in the Philippines use Premiere, and they know how to fine-tune it, and they can get it to look really, really good. But when I do it in Final Cut Pro, it's just as good, and it's so cool.
They're not using Macs over there. Probably.
That's right. So that's why they use Premiere.
Yeah.
And we just don't do a whole lot of green screen anyway. But that was just a side note. So what I've used, I started using iMovie, and it was great. And then I upgraded to Final Cut Pro. One of the biggest upgrades is there is a throttling that is taken off. iMovie runs slower and processes and renders slower than Final Cut Pro. They just throttle it down because it's their free version.
Yeah.
And if you're going to deal with layers, meaning you've got camera A, camera B, you've got this audio, and you want to put in a background image or a text overlay, in iMovie you're limited to how many layers you can have.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I don't remember what number, but it's only a couple.
Yeah.
But there's no limit in
Final
Cut Pro. There's obviously no limit in Adobe Premiere. Now, a lot of YouTubers that are doing a lot more color correcting and that are doing more cinematic stuff, majority of them, not all, but majority of them, they lean towards Adobe Premiere. So, take that into consideration. I know that Devin Supertramp, for example, they do a lot of color correction and post-production, and they film on big, red cameras. What are they? The Red Dragon, whatever they are. It costs like $80,000 for one camera. I don't know, filming in 8K. I guess if you're going to do that, you need to go with Premiere, I guess. That's what they say.
I would imagine most people watching this are kind of individual entrepreneurs or maybe just getting started or things like that.
If you're going to, film on a DSLR camera like this that films in HD, I have one of my cameras films in 4K, but I intentionally don't film in 4K most of the time unless I'm intentionally wanting to crop it and still render it in 1080p HD. Where was I going with that?
Well, you were saying that, I don't know.
I guess it was going back to what software do I recommend. I guess 1080p, it doesn't matter.
I remember, and maybe things have changed. I used Adobe Premiere years ago, then I switched over to Mac. And I just remember that like the Mac product, the Final Cut Pro and iMovie, they sort of intuitively know what constraints you're using. Like, the video comes in and it automatically knows this is 1080p, blah, blah, blah. I just remember on Premiere, I always had to select that myself. Otherwise, it didn't fit in the frame right.
I would define that as Apple's Final Cut Pro is kind of more, all the controls are a little bit more intuitive. You don't really, like in Premiere, you can do things really quick if you know shortcut, like keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
And how to switch between tools. But if, you kind of got to really learn, there's 3 different ways of doing it. I prefer this one combined with this one. And so if you really are editing every single day and whatnot, you could learn all that and become really fast. But in Final Cut Pro, really you can pick it up a lot quicker. And because I have a team that does my editing, every time I go back to edit something, and when I use Premiere, I have to okay, how do I do this again? But when I go into Final Cut Pro, I just remember real quick.
Now, is Final Cut Pro, do they have a PC version, or is it?
I think you might have to. I don't think they create a PC version, but I think you can get something to make it work. I don't know.
I was curious. I mean, yeah.
If you don't have a Mac, just go with Premiere. That's
right. That's basically the advice.
If you've got a Mac, use Final Cut Pro.
With a Mac, you could
Premiere.
use either. But Final Cut
I've got
Pro.
both on my computer. I actually have a listing of kind of different categories or reasons that there might be pros and cons. So let's talk about time to render. Final Cut Pro renders quicker. In my experience, it renders quicker just on my computer. So I'll say on my MacBook, it's a 2013, still running like new. It's amazing.
Same.
And I got a really upgraded version when I bought it. But when I render a video in Final Cut Pro, it's probably a third of the time that it takes to render the same project in Premiere. I don't know why that is. And Final Cut Pro, it's really good at rendering in the background. So if I hit render and I go back in and I start editing other things, it doesn't slow down my computer one bit.
It's amazing.
Whereas Premiere, you export it to the media encoder, and it does bog things down a little bit. So we found some workarounds with my team that we sync it to another computer and have that computer render while they can still edit on their computer. But
nice.
that's actually using 2 different computers. Let's talk about file size. Now there's kind of some pros and cons. File size, there's actually some cons to Final Cut Pro. The project file, to save it and transfer it, it creates the whole package that includes the root files plus these large, you might have a project that's only 10 gigabytes or 5 gigabytes or anyway, but it seems like when you're creating a project, somehow 30 gigabytes of space are used up on your computer. And if you don't then go out and clear that out, your computer just automatically fills. So it's really weird that Final Cut Pro does that. I've noticed that. So
whereas Adobe Premiere has the project file,
and it's
as
teeny.
We've talked about, is only
really
100. Yeah,
so that's a big advantage to Premiere.
Yeah, for sure.
We already talked about Mac or PC. If you're on a Mac, but if you're not on a Mac, you probably don't want to use Final Cut Pro.
What's funny? But I used PC forever. A lot of us took a while to switch over. But you hear enough people saying Macs, their performance, their software, you don't drop frames. It's like it's tighter, it's more comprehensive, and it's so true. I just trust, and I just have a little MacBook Pro, just a little 13-inch screen, not a huge operating system or whatever.
Mine's 15-inch.
But, that's because you're a man. But I literally can do almost anything, and like you say, it goes faster. It seems to be just more intuitive, and it's also the whole process itself. I trust more. It's like it was designed for this kind of work, whereas PCs are for all kinds of business applications and writing letters.
So the next category, the next 2 I have, is it a new or old computer that you've got, and then topic of green screen. I kind of want to talk about those together. So if I were filming on green screen and editing on my MacBook, I keep pointing right there because my MacBook's right here.
Right there.
I can just leave it there. I can film on green screen and edit the full video, no problems, on my 2013 MacBook in Final Cut Pro and have it have no problem. But it can't handle doing green screen in Premiere because it's just older. I would need a more advanced.
Right.
So I have a PC upstairs that's like a 2018 brand new advanced gaming computer. There's no games on it. It's just so it can render. It can render Premiere, green screen editing and large. It could just handle a lot more or lots of things simultaneously.
Yeah.
My MacBook could not handle Premiere, editing, advanced stuff like that. But it's what I love is it's how old is that now? 5 years?
6 years. Yeah.
13. Yeah. I bought it in the fall of 13.
Oh, so 5. Yeah.
So 5 years, but.
But it was sitting on the showroom floor for who knows how long.
It was shipped to me from China, actually.
Oh, there you go.
It's like flawless. It behaves like new when I'm using Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
No matter how advanced the project
pretty
is
cool.
or how, if it's a 15-minute video, it has no problem at all. So I love it. Another topic here is if you're planning on hiring people in the Philippines, we've kind of talked about this in other videos, you want to all be using the same software, and that's just going to default towards Premiere. Just go with Premiere for sharing of project files and syncing on Dropbox and whatnot. But I'd recommend for, editing videos, just kind of study what other YouTubers that kind of match your style, study what they do, study how they do it, learn from them. Like, for example, I recommend, Casey Neistat. He might film a video where it shows him opening a door and walking into the room. Like, really think about, okay, how did he film that? He obviously came in here, sat down on the camera, left the room, closed the door, and then came back in and walked over and picked up his camera. And then if he's outside and he's got a shot of him running past the camera, well, he already ran up, propped up the camera, ran back, ran past, and then ran back to get the camera. So it's kind of like, study how did they do that? Or how did they do this time lapse? How did they do this slow motion? And just kind of figure out, how are they doing this? So this kind of applies to the software. It's like what editing techniques are they using? Maybe not so much what software are they using, but how are they doing it? Just study what other people are doing.
And there's certainly no shortage of YouTube videos that
Yeah.
show you exactly the nuts and bolts of Adobe Premiere or FCP. Yeah.
And then my last tip is I'm going to actually recommend not to film in 4K. It's 4 times the file size, and there's no point to it. Most the views that I get on my channel and all my other channels are coming on phones that
You'd never know the difference.
you never know the difference, and
Yeah.
yet it's such a huge file size. The argument in the YouTuber community is that, or it's going to future-proof my business if I film everything in 4K. But I'm like, it doesn't future-proof my business. All this footage that I filmed in the past, why in the future, even if people do have 4K whatevers, why am I going to need to have that in 4K? Devin Supertramp's one that said that, but he films in 8K. And he sells his footage to like Hollywood studios. So I guess if he wants them to still buy his old footage,
Yeah.
you guys, you don't need to film in 4K because it requires higher rendering power on your computer. It'll slow things down. It will quadruple the time it takes for files to transfer. And I mean, the only times that I film in 4K, even on this, you'll notice that right now we're in full screen. Maybe we are. And then sometimes it'll zoom in or crop it, and it will just show me. So that's less than 1080p, and yet it still looks pretty clear.
But I will make an argument for what Devin
argue.
talks about a little bit, and that is depending on the content of your video. So, for example, if he's getting amazing outdoor shots that, for me, I don't always watch on a phone. I am at a desk quite a bit, and sometimes I'll pull up a video. Sometimes that brilliant, almost lifelike resolution is so stunning to me that I'll watch whatever he puts on. You know what I mean? Like, or whoever these people are that do these fun outdoor things. It's like it's so brilliantly clear and crisp that you go, God, that's on my computer. And he's shooting live footage in Bangladesh or whatever, and they're dancing in the streets and something or other. Whereas, like for this one, for example, we're just two sort of static figures sitting here, and it doesn't.
But here's the question
it's
for
not
you:
critical that we're
what
in 4K.
resolution were you watching that video in?
Well, I was watching it as high as my computer would allow me to watch it.
Probably 1080p.
Yeah, but my point is it does look better than our 1080p. You know what I'm saying? Because it was originally
I'll argue
recorded in that.
Well, I'll argue not
Makes
that
sense.
because it was 4K, but because he does film in RAW, and then he goes in and enhances the colors and everything.
Oh, maybe it's
So
color correction and tweaking.
So he does. I mean, the cameras that we have today do really good. I mean, the picture quality that you're seeing right now is really good. But we're not doing any enhancing. We're not color correcting, which we could. We're not really doing any post production in the way of that. And I would argue that the 4K doesn't have an impact on that. That's just the resolution. So if you're to watch it on a big, huge 4K TV, you would notice a difference. But when you're just watching it on a computer, I've got my biases, so I'm going to shut you down.
That's just my opinion. Take
All
it for
right.
what it's worth. Hey, good to have you. Great to be here. Thanks so much. Hopefully you enjoyed our little video, our little chat, some discussion.
Tell them to subscribe.
Tell them to subscribe. Oh, am I supposed to say that?
Yeah.
You're supposed to subscribe.
Tell them to buy something.
You heard him. Buy something.
We must be selling something somewhere.
Look for something to buy on screen. See you next time.
All right. Take care.